Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, Youth Baseball Talk. We're off a little day because we have our GAC Classic, so it's Wednesday. And I have these two gentlemen joining me here today. To my right, Eric Eisen, Mo Gators Parkway West assistant coach. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me again.
That's 2 in a row, man.
Yes.
Oh, 3 in a row, actually. We had you with Dave on the show, and we're just hanging out. And then down first timer on the show here, Tod Nissle, Midwest Rebels, catching instructor, hitting instructor, coach, and all around good dude.
Appreciate that.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
For having me on. My
pleasure, man. I appreciate you being here. We have a topic here that I always think is interesting in youth baseball. I know, Eric, you deal with high school baseball, and I always love these perspectives because when we talk about youth baseball, I personally, and one of the things that's a focus of ours on Youth Baseball Midwest is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even to 12. Man, have as much fun as you can. Learn, develop. I think development, understanding the game. I don't mind dad coaches. I think those are the guys that are more invested. What sometimes is problematic is some of them may not have as much education or understanding of the game. So where can we make that better? I think these are things, because I do not like Mike Matheny's blanket statement in his manifesto that parents are the problem. I think that's a terrible accusation. It's my son. That's my child. I'm not a problem. Are there parents that are problematic? Yes. There's always negatives to things, and I always like to bring these things kind of back up, because when we're talking about these types of subject matter, I think it's important to balance things, because there's some really good dad coaches. There's some guys that do well with it, and there's guys that don't. And that's just the nature of things. So are they doing their best? Yeah. And sometimes that does maybe stunt the growth of a player. Okay. But we're competing. Competition. I believe in competition. You guys believe in competition?
100%, yeah.
There you go.
If it didn't happen, we wouldn't be here.
Right? So in the end, how do we teach our young athletes to compete when we want the game to just be fun? And that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, how do we balance those things?
Well, for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'll just be flat out honest with you. It's a group I would have a hard time coaching, just because I think I want the players to be concentrating on the skill at hand. And when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sometimes they like to play in the dirt. Their focus is on other things. I mean,
butterflies.
Yeah, I mean, my wife gave me trouble because I didn't coach our youngest one at the younger ages, because it's not an age that, I don't know. I just can't deal with kids that aren't they're attentive for the 2 hours.
But you know what? I think that's cool. I think you realize that and understand that about yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously information I can give those age kids to help them. It's just not something I could do. You got to be special to treat or to deal with those kids at that age, on a weekly basis. And I don't know what age you coach that young or not, but it would be a tough age for me.
Yeah.
So back in Phoenix, I had the opportunity to work with MLB dudes, and the youngest I've ever coached is 6. I'm 100% with you on the younger guys. If you look at the drop-offs from Little League to high school, how many millions of kids just don't get the opportunity to play there. I think there comes a point, too, not every player is the same. Right. Not everyone wants to be. Some guys want to be. I mean, this goes into high school as well. Some guys just want to be there with their buddies because that's the friend group they grew up with, they played with. Competition is something that stems so much further than just the game of baseball. Even, I'm not sure about Missouri, but in Arizona, the AIA determined that the field was just another classroom. We were trying to make better adults, not necessarily make next-level baseball players. Mm-hmm. If you want to have that edge, you're going to have to want it. The guys that, as far as competing goes, I found were the guys that can make the work, because it turns into that. Make it fun. How do you find joy in doing what you love to do? Because there's reps involved. As far as the game should be fun, practice is where work should be done. The outside time, that's where the work should be done. But as far as playing a game, they should enjoy playing the game. If you have guys that don't want to go out there and win, those are the guys that are going to weed themselves out, because the fact is, high school, yeah, they make a little bit, but college, that's how that dude feeds his family. And if they don't want to take it serious and, hey, I'm just having a little fun, that's where you'll see those big dropouts.
I think it's interesting when you look at I always enjoyed listening to certain athletes. One, of course, I believe recently was Kobe Bryant. Because when he was by himself, he was competing against everybody. You look at athletes that I think are going to the next level. When they're in the cage, they're competing. They're not just there getting reps. It isn't, and I think that's the difference. And I'm not so sure that's got to be a mindset. Can it be developed? Sure. I think there's kids that may not think that way early on, but develop that.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's very valid. I think that you've got to, when you go 6 through 10, you've got to have somebody who has a basic sense of knowledge of the game.
Sure.
That's going to teach those kids the most basic of fundamentals.
Right.
So that when
run left.
Right. Yeah. I mean, or how do you position your shoulders and your feet when you're fielding a ground ball? Not all the technical stuff of the different arm angles you can throw from or anything like that. But I think the basic fundamentals of catching a fly ball and make sure your glove's up like this and not down like just basic stuff that seems crazy, but that's basic. And then as they progress, to 10, 11, 12, they can pick up some more knowledge as they go along. I mean, the main thing for me when I see them at 13 or 14 is if they've been coached well enough that they know the basic fundamentals of the game. And if they have, I can take that to another level and give them more information to prepare them ultimately what my job is for high school.
Sure.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good points. What you said as far as can you develop athletes there? Absolutely. And I think that's why he was saying even the younger guys. Because once testosterone kicks in at 13, sometimes 12, sometimes 14, early, late bloomers, that makes it a lot easier for guys to get competitive. I mean, that's just that natural thing that starts to kick on. And one thing I want to note is when we think about being competitive, it's this very harsh, brutal, let's go, this is it, it's not fun. You ever see a group of guys just hang out for 30 minutes? At least 2 competitions happen. It's a blast, right? I think there's that too.
Who's spitting further?
Right, exactly. Something dumb like that. And then there was something that you mentioned that I'm trying to remember because I was going on that, but it was something about basic fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's 100% because I don't care what level of the game you go to. If you can't catch a ball that's left foot between and it's right there, it ain't gonna work. You got to execute the basics.
I personally, I like that part of it. That 6. The first time I coached any sport, I grew up playing soccer. Enjoyed playing it. It's the first thing I ever coached. I was 20, AYSO in Southern California. And I had 5-year-olds. And I was in school at the time, too. I even wrote a paper because it really struck me at that age. It really struck me because I had, 12, 15, I can't remember the number, of 5-year-old boys standing in front of me. And I'm talking to them, and I spit. And 15 little boys started going, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Little fellas, wait, well, I want mom's getting upset. Why are you spitting all the time now? Coach does it. And this is, it really struck me the level of attention that they have. Yep. They are playing in the dirt. How do you get their attention? And I wrote a paper on this in school because I thought it was really interesting. And I personally, on my side of it, I like that. Can we create those situations in those basic fundamentals? How do you get these kids to understand the basic fundamentals, moving them on? I love that part of it. I love all aspects, but I think that's interesting to me. And I think you, as a coach, I think you have to know where your strengths lie as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And back to what we kind of started here at the front, daddy ball is what I call it. You know, you're gonna have dads that may have played at a high level.
Right.
You know, that actually are very good and knowledgeable
Yes.
and know what the heck they're doing.
Right.
And they're just the one that started the team. They wanted to coach their son. They probably have a good chance to attract some good players if their son's a good player.
Sure.
But you're also going to have those, and this may be more at the rec level, that nobody else wants to volunteer to be the coach.
Agreed, Eric.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
So he's kind of just the sacrificial lamb and says, okay, I'll do it because nobody else wants to. And that, in the end, that's great that parent's stepping up and doing that.
Sure.
But how much knowledge is he really teaching those kids if they do have some talent?
Yeah.
That's going to ultimately prepare them as they get a little bit older. So there's probably a wide spectrum.
Sure.
You got to be careful. When you use that term that I do, daddy ball, because some dads that do coach may have played in the major leagues. I've coached against guys.
I think it's okay to use it. It's just understanding as you said, the scope of what that is. I think, right?
Yes. I mean, you're not going to see a whole lot of paid coaches at the 6 through 10. It's just not going to happen.
And I don't think we need to.
Yeah. And
I don't even think we need them at 12, 13, and 14, personally.
Right.
I think that gets, I'm gonna say this. This is my brain on baseball, okay? I have no problem with clubs. I like to see all of it. I think it's great. I think the opportunities within the clubs. I think you can take some of these because as you're getting up to 12, 13, 14, the teams begin to shrink, right? You have kids that who your kids are at that point. At 14, you know who are going to be.
When you say shrink, though, I mean, I think we need to be specific there because I don't think the number of teams are shrinking. I think the talent level at a high level
Very good. Thank
is
you.
shrinking.
Thank you. So
because if you look at these clubs,
Right.
the number of teams they have at each age group is
so
crazy.
you understand and know, and you have a pretty good idea of who can handle coaching a team like that, helping them understand where the club wants to go and what they want to see when they get to 15. And I think that's where that progresses anyway. Let the kids enjoy those things, understand the seriousness of it. And I think for the most part, these are things that are happening in the clubs, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and we've kind of hinted at this before. I think at 14 is really the age where you find out who wants to play baseball at a highly competitive level. Do you want to go play another sport? Do you want to start focusing on girls? Do you want to start playing video games or continue playing video games? I think you start to weed them out really at 14. And you made a good point earlier too, when they hit the puberty. Who jumps earlier than the other kids.
It's the real thing.
And I just think that is the specific age where you truly find out who wants to play baseball at a high level.
Yeah. You were talking a little earlier about the young kids and basically like herding cats. So when I ran into this, my background is I'm a strength coach. That's what I did, and I played baseball, and coaching baseball and strength match very beautifully together. The first time I ever had a group of really, really young guys, like 5 to 7. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Because I'm used to like pro athletes that are like, if I get better, I get paid or I can play another year.
Right.
Where these guys are just all over. I had kids sitting on the ground and I'm like, what is going on? Like, couldn't do a drill. So you go and ask mentors, like, I ran into this. What is going on? Like, what can I do? Help. And he laughed. And I was like, it's not funny. He's like, yes, it is. I know exactly how you feel. And I was like, well, what's the answer? Because he does them all the time. And the guy I'm talking about is John Heising at Fuel Factory from this place I worked back in Arizona. And he goes, the answer is you have to create them a box, and then let them play in that box. So basically, you design a drill that's very flexible, and you kind of set it up where they're going to get the feel. Because the fact of the matter is, some kids want to do it, some kids won't, and you're only one person. So You set this up, and if they want to do it, they can do it, and you basically run it around. You give them this window to play in, and you design them as a game.
Sure.
And through that game, they learn these certain moves. So it's like putting them in the race against each other.
Smart.
I think we've all been there to practice. We're like,
Competition.
we just want to run.
Competition, right? Yeah.
Yep. And then from the coaching side of things, for your coaches, right? Because I think we all kind of agree, there's a level of coaches that you can have from 6 to 10, 11, 12U. And then you can have from either 12U to 14U. And then there's high school guys, college guys, pro guys, indie guys, all that good stuff, right? All those are different levels of coaching, just like they are of playing, because they're different guys. Like, for instance, in pro ball, you don't call anybody coach. If you call someone coach, you're getting fined. Right? At that point, like, you should know what to do. I'm here to help you through my experience. Like, that level. That's not high school.
Right.
Like you don't call your head coach by his first name. That doesn't work, right? For the guys that start to get up to that level, I think there's a very important distinction between managing and coaching. Mm-hmm. And being able to coach mechanics. Like, I break down coaching as you need to know tactics, psychology, and mechanics, how it works. And then what kind of like levels you have as a coach is how well can you communicate those? Because not every ball player is the same. You're going to have to go in and out. Like, in my opinion, you haven't played college ball unless there was minimum one instance where you thought your coach was going to kill and bury the entire team in left field. Like, like there's
you guys are sucking my will to live.
Yeah. Like there's levels to it. So then it comes down to where can you find those guys that have the idea of, hey, this is the next level of ball mechanics wise, tactics wise, because bases are different, speed's different, throwing, all that stuff's different, and then have the ability to manage that. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're in this game, you want to win, and chances are you hate losing more than you like winning. So where can you find those guys?
And that goes right to the development process, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How do we find the avenues? I think one of the greatest things you said there is, and this goes back to your point, you may have about dads. You may have a dad who didn't play at a high level, but has an understanding of how to communicate, how to instruct, how to develop and put people in places that are successful because that's what they do. And they're able to translate that to baseball. They'll go and watch training videos and are able to create the opportunities to develop. And you have those opportunities as well. And I think that, to me, is the biggest key in development is are you able to communicate to the individual what you see in your mind as an instructor or as a coach, for them to understand how to apply that. And I think one of the biggest things, guys, and I've said this before, one of the things that made a real big reality to me when I was coaching as far as baseball, these young kids, we would compete, let's do knockout. Let's compete. Kids are fun, you go through it. And kids are, fielding balls. You get in the game, boot, boot, boot. This is the ability to understand how to communicate at a different level and what it takes to compete at that level on the field. And I said, what's the difference, guys, between you playing knockout and gobbling everything up, going out on the ball diamond and kicking the ball around? What's the difference? There's one thing, and I said, the ball's coming to you. So your mechanics kick in, your mind is there, it all drives down through that. How do you develop in your mind the ability to focus, to believe that the ball, when it's pitched, is going to be hit to you, and you're prepared mentally to field a ground ball? And that is at the crux of all of this, because there's many of these kids that have the mechanics to do it, but don't have the mental capacity to stay focused long enough. And I think this is where development becomes more than just a physical attribution.
100%.
Go ahead.
I think you're 100% on that. The difference between AA and the guys in the show is literally mentality. How consistent can they be? And that's mental. I mean, a lot of people like to talk about Derek Jeter and how good he was. They don't like to talk about how he cried for the first 6 months every night when he got to pro ball because he thought he wasn't good enough. It's that mental side of things. being able to get through that. And I think if you've coached long enough, you've had that thing where it's like, my guys are good enough, I know they can, but when it comes to competition, they make errors and stuff, and it's how do you coach through that? I think mentality is a very real thing, and sometimes it can be very frustrating. I think as if you've played baseball, you've had, quote unquote, I've gone through a slump in high school, that's spring training, bro. You haven't hit long enough to go through a slump yet. But the fact is, like, to them, it's real, right? And that's mentality. And if they think they're going through a slump, they're going through a slump.
Yeah.
I mean, on the development side, I mean, watched it this weekend with 14-year-old kids. We practiced the Wednesday before on cutoffs and where you're supposed to go in certain spots. And you get in a game situation, there's a ball hit the left field, play at the plate, and the third baseman's standing on the third base bag. Well, your job's to be the cut.
Right.
We just worked on this for 30 minutes in practice, so it goes to your point of practice is one thing, and the game situation. You've got to mentally prepare your players that they know what they're going to do with the ball before it's hit to them. And until you can get that point across, that you've got to know every situation that could possibly happen before that pitch is made and what you're going to do with the ball when it's hit to you. And the guys that are good at getting that message across, those are the guys that are going to have their players in the right spot. And obviously, we didn't do a great job on that Wednesday of practice, so we'll work on it again this week. But
sure.
It's little things like that. You hit on a very valid point, and it happens even at the high school level. You've got to have players mentally prepared for what they're going to do when the ball's hit to them.
And I think that is I think we talk about the two other, big sports, football and basketball. Football, yes, you have the plays, and there is a little bit, especially at the quarterback position. But those are two sports that are very reactionary, especially basketball. Mm-hmm. It's flow, it's movement, it's can you see, what do you see, and just the flow and the movement of the game. Baseball is the toughest, mentally challenging game that we have.
Well, here's the reality. I mean, the guys that play this game at the highest level, pro ball you've referenced, if they get a hit 3 out of 10 times, they're doing pretty damn good. Right. So, you're failing over 70% of the time.
Right.
And that's offensively, but, pitchers, the best pitchers in the world, they walk guys.
Yeah.
They throw wild pitches, they throw the ball away at first base. So,
Cobb throws one into right center field against the Yankees.
Right.
Yeah.
So, baseball, it'll challenge you mentally, physically, every way possible. And I'll go back to my point. You've got to do your best as a coach to mentally prepare your players for all the different scenarios they're going to run into.
Yeah. And I think when you talk about mechanics, that's physical. And when you talk about preparing and everything and handling failure, that's mentally. I think the last part of that is emotionally. And, baseball is an unemotional game played by emotional people. If you have the same baseball field and you have the local high school out and the next it's the World Baseball Classic, that's the same field. It's just who's on it's different. And being able to handle that and go about your business the right way, I think that's the difference.
And so this is why I always say to parents, this is where I always give this PSA, public service announcement for those of you. Remember this when you're at the ballpark. It's all good to holler. You can even, give the blue and, come on, blue. That's all right. That's nothing wrong with those things. Just as long as we don't go beyond that.
Yeah.
Because they are still just kids. These are high school kids still. There's you go out and you'll see these kids boot a baseball. They'll get pressure put on them, and there's some really high level baseball in this area. But just remember, and these officials out there, nobody's trying to lose a game for anybody. So just remember these things as we're talking, and especially as it goes down. It's 9U, 10U, 11U baseball. Quit hollering at the umpire. Because the 20 errors that happened before the one call did not cost you the game.
No.
Yeah, as a parent, I can't stress enough when I have meetings with parents at the beginning of the year is those 2 hours, if it's, let's say it's one game or 2 hours at practice, that's my time with your son or daughter. I don't coach girls, but your son. Let me be the voice in their ear for those 2 hours. Stay away from the dugout. Don't practice. Don't be trying to instruct something that
Right.
I
think that's fair, too. I think that's fair.
I mean, because we all know, and we've talked about this before too. When you get in the car ride on the way home, mom and dad especially, is probably going to be in that player's ear the whole way home.
Have you ever heard of the hat thing? Have you ever heard of this? So, parent sits in the front, kid sits in the back after the game. If the parent wants to talk about the game, they take their hat off. If the kid keeps his hat on, you're dad. If the kid takes his hat off, you can talk about the game. And it keeps that, we're like, because chances are if the kid sucked, he knows he sucked. Like, he just had a bad day, and that's baseball.
And, the older you get, and we've all done it as parents, we've had those moments where we're like, but you try to be better, and what did you think? I always tried to ask my son as we got older, what did you think about the game? What did you think about your performance? And if he said, I didn't like it, it was just, okay, all right. But if he said, yeah, it was good, well, what'd you like about it? What'd you think you did? And so tried to accentuate positives and just let go of those negatives a little bit. And I think some of those things can be helpful in that respect, just for them.
Yeah.
Just to understand, we're not going to beat up on the negatives. If you had positives, let's talk about that.
Well, I think a lot of parents also forget how hard baseball is.
Yeah.
At 60 feet, the difference in a foot if you throw 2 pitches, the difference in those locations is 1 degree of angle of release point. That's wild, considering the plate's only 17 inches wide. And mathematically, if you throw an 85-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle, mathematically they say it's impossible to do. Now, we do it every day. But it's hard. It's not easy. And, especially as catchers, because making a catcher is, I just got to remove your survival instincts. So when parents are catch the
that's
ball,
why
catch
I think
the
they
ball.
got to be a little crazy.
Well, there's a reason for it, right? That's why we say catch up big heads. It's all that inflammation, Right. So, but parents will get on kids. I'm like, hey, listen, I got a whole bucket here. Do you want to hop in? And I've done it with kids where they're catch the ball. Coach, I want to catch. Go warm up the guy next to me. Go ahead. He'll be happy to take that. Most of the time, I've only had one kid that was that was awesome. And you can, of course, he was a little. So, but they're I never want to do that again. That's the scariest thing in the world. Their parents are nah, I'm good. Yeah, there's a reason for it, man. It is brutal. It is hard. And I'm not going to say, I don't know if I'm using this right, but the ironic thing about catching is when you're scared, that's when it hurts. So when you relax, you're all right, I'm going to get hit. All of a sudden, everything starts to click.
You got to trust it. I umpired for 13, 14 years, and I've done from, 9U up to college-age kids. And seen some 90-plus. I've got drilled right in the knee with 70, and it was about 72 to 75 miles an hour.
Did you have a conversation with the catcher?
Oh yeah. after I could walk again. I mean, you get drilled right in the kneecap.
That's Contreras.
Exactly. And it was much worse than that.
Right.
I dropped like a sack of potatoes. It took me about 10 minutes to get feeling back in my leg, and that's with the padding. So I mean, it's not you. And as just speaking from a purely umpire perspective, you're trusting that young man in front of you to block and to do all that and whatnot, and they know that. Yeah, they understand that part of the game.
Yeah, it goes both ways, 100%. You got to protect them. Well, and even at and I encourage.
And that's what I mean. That's the part of it. Not only am I trying to call a game, but I don't want to get blue killed back here because he might not give me the call.
Sure. Yeah, you'll lose the plate. Well, especially at lower levels too. I've had umpires go hey, listen, I know you guys have an hour 50 for this game. This is going to be over in an hour 20. Let's go. Okay, hey, listen, we get some more outside.
I did a game like that. Hour 20 minutes, man, 2-1. I had 2 dudes throwing strikes. Let's go, baby.
Let's rock and roll. Well, I encourage people to look at this because they don't realize, when you watch a baseball game, chances are the camera's on the outfield. You see the ball a lot longer than anyone else does. So go ahead, go watch a pro ball game. And I found it's about 86 miles an hour. He will block that ball before both shins hit the ground. That's how fast it's happening. Because a fastball doesn't beat your hands, it beats your eyes. That's why when catchers get crossed up, man, I hope he was expecting a fastball. Because that sucks. That's not fun.
I want to finish up here last as we finish this winning. because
Full circle.
yeah, because we talk about competing development. The desired result we're looking for at the end of the game is we have more runs on the board than the other guy.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee for that. None. Especially in baseball. I don't remember ever seeing, there might have been, you can go look at the record books, maybe. I've never really paid much attention to it because I think it's a fantasy in baseball, going undefeated. And so to me, it's the other part of that when you talk about what is winning. How do you talk to your players about that?
I got to go on for this.
Go ahead.
So when I became a coach because of the coaches I had previously and not because of the positive. I think you always become the coach that you wish that you had. So the first thing I did was I went and read John Wooden's book. UCLA, right? Coach at UCLA.
Yep.
And he had a definition of success, which I'm not going to get verbatim, but pretty much this way. You could be successful if you have done everything in your power that you could possibly do to become the best that you could possibly become. Now, because the fact is, I don't know if anybody's ever watched the Little League World Series and you see these 12-year-olds that are 6'2".
Yeah.
They're from 48 feet. Right. Good luck. There's nothing I can do. Or hey, you got a D1 guy at the high school level. D1 guy's going to go, and he's in the outfield. He's going to cover some grass today, boys. There's nothing that you can do about that if they make a great play. Again, at the highest level of the game, pitchers beat Hall of Fame hitters 70% of the time.
Right.
So winning is never guaranteed an outcome. Now, I think what you can teach is mentality hey, man, if we had one more inning, if we had 3 more outs, we could have won. If we had 15 more minutes of game time, we could have won. We just didn't have enough time. We just didn't have enough innings. And I think if you create that, are you doing everything that you possibly can? Did you sleep well last night? And if you really want to deep dive some stuff, go look at what's sleep and neurological stuff. Oh, my goodness. That's the best performance-enhancing legal thing that you can do is sleep. Did you do that? Did you eat? Did you study? How many ground balls you take today? I think, to me, that is winning because at the end of the day, most people, I can never say 100%, but I'm going to say 99.99%. If you ask them, hey, you remember when you were 13, you played that summer ball game in June? 3rd week, what was the score? Most people will never remember. Now they'll remember the great times they had. They remember the coaches they had. They'll remember the smell of the field or how long the walk was from the parking lot. And I think if you take that approach rather than the end-all, be-all score, because there's a lot you can't control in this game. If you take that approach, to me, that's winning rather than the bottom line or that scoreboard.
Yeah, obviously winning is, like you said, who scores more runs. I think as a coach, for example, let's take a 14U team. I've got 13 kids. Do I throw one of my top 3 pitchers on that day? Do I play my best 8 players in the field? We kind of had this conversation actually after some games on Saturday this weekend. I think it was Saturday, but you're going to coach differently if you're trying to go all out to win a game.
100%.
And I think you got to be careful of doing that at the younger ages because you've got everybody that paid money to play on these teams. Everybody wants to play.
Right.
So you can be strategic about how you do it as a coach. Pool games, does everybody make it to bracket play? Does it matter if you go 2-0 or 3-0 in pool versus 1-1 or 2-1? I am of the belief on Sunday when the games matter that you play the best lineup you got.
I agree. I agree with that.
We're there to develop the kids at GBA, but we're also there to win baseball games.
I found if you tell parents up front,
yes,
hey, listen, we're here to get your kids better. We're here to get them to the next level because that's the right thing to do. But when it comes game time, we're competitive. And if we need to win a game, understand that if your kid isn't the best 9 on this team, he may sit a little bit. Yeah. But that's because it's not about the name on the back, it's because the name on the front. That's our organization. I think that's your power as a coach. Their power as a parent is to go, great, we're going to go try this other team.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And to your point, Eric, I understand people are paying money. I get it. And why am I paying the money? Because if I'm as a parent, and we say this on the show so nobody can say, Brian, you've never said it. Yeah, we do. As a parent, I'm going to go and check out the clubs. I'm going to talk to the director. I'm going to talk to the coaches. I'm going to say, look, what is it about your development process? What do I want to hear? What do I want? This is where my son. Can you assess him? Tell me what you think. I'll be honest. And if I'm going to pay money, can you help him get better? And what does that mean? Is he going to get to play? When will he play? And if that's the case, and this is what you think, then as parents, we've got to start assessing some of these things, and people have to start saying this. Just because you paid that club you didn't pay them to play. You're paying that club to help your son develop and get better as an athlete and as a person, helping you that way learn some lessons. I think it's the parents that teach, but those lessons that are there also help that child understand how to compete, how to develop, and having a winning attitude. Because I agree, nobody's guaranteed a result of anything. Nobody's guaranteed anything in life. In this world,
I think it was
you have to learn how to mentally accept these things and put those things in perspective.
I thought it was pretty interesting were you talking about how parents go shop around, on how similar that was to the college recruitment process.
Right?
You literally go out, you say, hey, what do you think? Because most people just don't get discovered on a weekend. Most don't. Right. Now, if you're throwing 95 off the bump, people are going to come knocking on your door.
I know that guy.
Yeah. But most time, every college athletic department has an email address. Do some research, go look where they're at. Hey, coach, I saw your stuff. I really like what you had on this page in there, and I'd love to come visit. And that is going to put you ahead of 50% of everyone out there, regardless of your statistics. Finding a good fit works both ways, not necessarily just how is it on Sunday, because in fact there is. Sunday games are a very small part of actually being part of an organization or a team.
Yeah, for me, I compare it a little bit to college post-COVID now, where you can transfer with no penalty.
Right.
And I think it's actually been bad for sports in general, because if you don't like your role on a team now, you can just bolt.
Yeah, I agree.
And what message is that sending to a kid who made a commitment? And I get the whole thing, if a coach gets a better job, he can bolt, there's no penalty. I understand that side of it too. But, if I'm a player and I don't like my role on that team, I can just go transfer somewhere else.
Right.
And to your point, if I play 13U for one club and I don't like the decisions the coach made with my son's playing time, yes, I can bolt and go play somewhere else. I respect that.
Right.
For me in college, it's a little bit different. You made a commitment to that school and to that coach, to just let them out because you don't like your role or your playing time. I don't agree with how the NCAA is running that right now.
And to your point there, Eric, I think that's, have a conversation. If you're a 13-year coach, don't do it after the game. Don't do it at the ballpark.
24-hour.
You don't catch him in the parking lot?
24-hour rule.
Call the coach on the phone. Hey, man, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Let's make it nice. We're all just people.
Don't you just walk up to the dugout? Hey, why isn't my kid playing?
Just lost 2-1.
Yeah.
On a walk-off walk. And Dad's going to come and say, well, hey, why didn't Johnny play?
Yeah. Come on. No. And that's what I'm saying. Call him. Go have some coffee. Go have a soda, whatever the case may be, and chat and say, look, what do you see? Because is it the development? And if you disagree, then okay. But at least have conversations. We've lost that. It's the emotional part of it, because we are emotionally invested in our children, but we can't make decisions based on those emotions.
Yes, and I would start with this, and parents that are watching this, as you get to 14, and especially in the high school, let the player take the responsibility of talking to the coach first. In the end, you may
at
not
14,
like.
you especially.
Sure,
I agree.
and you may not like what the coach tells your son, and if your son comes back and says, coach said this, and you don't like how that was portrayed or explained, then yes, reach out to the coach and have a conversation. But I'm a firm believer that the first conversation, if there's any kind of issue, needs to be between the player and the coach.
Different levels of baseball, but at the college level, if you as a parent contact that coach, that kid may not be alive the next day. He is going to
I think that's a little drastic, but it's close.
Oh, my God. I got some threats. Man, I'm telling you, after that team meeting, because he was like, I don't want to hear anything. You are grown men right now. I don't want to hear from mommy. I don't want to hear from daddy. I don't want to get an email. I don't want to get a voicemail. I don't want to get anything. He's like, if I get something, it's your fault, and you will pay for it. And it was just like, every single like, do not call, like, do not do anything.
Well, but I agree with that. It's like
Yeah.
your parents, if you got a job, and your parent calls your manager,
Right.
why did you say that to my son?
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Who are you again?
It's right.
Right.
I mean, it's a similar thing, and there's got to be some boundaries. And we as people, as adults,
Yeah.
need to communicate better. And I think this goes to this part of it on the communication level when we're teaching kids how to communicate what's best. And parents and coaches, I'm not going to leave anybody out of this. It's everybody learning how. I think high school coaches, I know high school coaches hate talking to parents. But in the end, it's still high school. There's there's still that juvenile thought process. You don't have to just acquiesce, and I think there are coaches that have a little more cachet than others.
Yeah.
But they're calling the AD. How come my son? Stop.
That has to stop. I mean,
That has
if
to stop.
the coach did something to warrant going and talking to the AD, that's a different story. But if you don't like that your son isn't playing, and he hasn't even gone and talked to the coach to find out
That's
why.
right. Or he already knows why.
Yeah, or the coach
And he hasn't told you.
or you don't agree because of his evaluation. That's fine, but that's not grounds to go run to an athletic director.
No, it's not.
And say that the coach doesn't know what the heck he's doing.
Right.
I don't agree with that at all.
100%. As far as a travel ball, the best setup I have found is if you have a managing coach. So whether it was like Jason would be for the Rebels, if there was an issue about playing time, or if it was just one guy had a great setup back in Arizona, this worked beautifully. Go talk to him, because what it did is it freed me up to coach, freed me up to manage, freed me up for stats, freed me up for whatever else I needed to do, and he would go there, and Jason would then go okay, and he would deal with people, and he would deal with whatever that is, and because Jason was in the dugout with me, and if he would be able to stop it right there, be like, oh, this is why you didn't see that. This is actually what happened. This is there. And then if it wasn't a problem, be like, hey, Todd, without the parent, it would just be that little group. And he would, hey, Todd, we had this, this, and this. Why did we do this? Why? What happened here? I saw that, and I didn't realize it when it happened at the time. And be like, oh, I honestly just made a mistake there. Like I didn't get him in. Oh, well, it was because of this, and his fielding percentage was actually 300 points higher, and because this team was pulling, then you could explain it. And normally it would just dissolve. Because the fact is, that wasn't an issue anymore. And most problems that I find are problems because people either, one, don't understand the why. And when they understand the why, it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know Steve Rohr? Do you know Rohr?
I know the name.
Oh, my God. We have a couple great stories. Rohr is one of the guys that started Midwest Rebels with Jason. He's great. He's the old guy at the program and absolutely hysterical. And what you see with Rohr is what you get with Rohr. So
isn't he a big guy?
He's taller. Yeah. Mr. Kansas. He threw a ball a little bit.
Yeah.
But he had parents were yelling at Jason. Jason's like, hey, listen, this. He just gets his hands up. And parents are just like M and F and Jason going at it. Steve rolls up. It's only Steve can. He goes, hey, listen, your kid's just a candy ass. So, and the parents go, you know what? You know what? He is. I apologize. I'm making you work a little more. But and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know what? I get it. He is a little soft. And the problem, Jason's like, what? What? You just walked? Are you serious? Yeah. And I think once you people understand why the decision was made, I think it's a lot easier to either one accept or two understand it and then move on.
Emotions.
Unemotional
We need to
players.
make better decisions based on conversations and talking and dealing with people as adults. I think, and I think it'll go better because I think these are things that are interesting conversations, and it's one of the things why and I appreciate you guys being candid. I really do because you guys represent clubs, and I've known Chris for a while. Met Jason, and but I think these guys are integral. They work to do things the best they can to make the best possible situation for the clubs.
As a coach, you've got to be honest with your players.
Yeah.
And if you can't be honest with them, you're
not honest with yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
You're just asking for more problems down the line. And my theory always has been, I'm going to tell you what I see and what I think. You may not agree with it, but that's my honest evaluation. And, like we talked about, if you don't like the evaluation or you don't like your role at the end of the season, there's always, another opportunity probably somewhere else. But in the end, it's been successful for me. If you're honest and you're upfront with your players, the track record shows you're going to get more out of them.
There you go. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you.
That's
Thanks,
good
Brian.
stuff.
Thanks.
Good
Yep,
conversation. Folks, appreciate you tuning in. Remember, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. We still got our bucket. We're 5 away from 1,000 subscribers. 5.
Let's go.
I love that. Yeah. So I appreciate everybody who is subscribed and supporting Youth Baseball Midwest. We don't have our bucket of baseballs from Prime Sports Midwest, but we got our bucket of baseballs. We got our Fungo. We got our hitting net, Marucci hitting net, all being given away here. When we hit 1,000, if you're part of that subscriber list, what? I'm not. Oh, yeah. Hang on. Don't forget
he's watching, too.
Yeah,
he
Mitch is probably going,
sure, yeah.
Dude. My bad, dog. Anywho, and Mitch has also got a free hitting lesson and a free fielding lesson for you over at the Hitting Zone. Along with that, if you've subscribed, we're going to pick that name out when we hit 1,000. You'll get all this stuff for you. We appreciate it very much, everybody. Have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. Hitters, you guys got any advice?
What did Mitch say? You got to hit 380, right?
380. 380.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can't hit that.
Well, with the win the last couple of days, if it's, we talked, those 12 and 13-year-olds at Branson, they were probably hitting at 380.
For my hitters out there, take a breath, have a good approach, and hit the outfield wall on a 10-foot rope.
Dang.
There you go.
That's a little more detailed than we're used to. I like it, though. And we'll see y'all next time. Wow.